And I'm telling you, this right here is a special moment, fellas, because we finding fans from different teams now. It's not just the NFC East or the AFC North. We
Facts.
actually branching out. So we got my boy Mario from Punchers Point, who's going to join us as we talk about the Rams versus Vikings and that bold statement that they made.
I'm gonna bring him up and I'm gonna fix it.
All right, cool, cool, cool.
What's up?
What's going on, man?
Not much. I'm trying to recover from this loss, honestly.
Long as you ain't saying ghosts.
I am-
Something we say in the chat. Welcome to the couch, my man. Just
I
let us know.
appreciate it, I
Let us
appreciate
know what. Let us know what dish you bring in.
Yeah, so basically, the whole question was Minnesota going to bounce back in the playoffs? Because I said myself, when we lost to Detroit, I said I would rather have us took that beating. I would have rather have us lose in the last week than have it happen in the playoffs, hoping that they were going to learn from that mistake. Well, I mean, obviously, spoiler alert, they didn't learn from it because the whole problem with the Detroit game was they started off slow and they never took off after that. The problem with this game, they started off slow, was the same exact thing. See, it's kind of a little bit different of a loss in the Detroit game. You see, the Detroit game, they just couldn't pick up nothing. They couldn't heat up. Jameer Gibbs was running as much as he wanted to against us. You know, that defense was absolutely dominant against us, against Detroit. This game was a little different. When I go and I look at the whole the stats per team, it's not like the Rams dominated us in any way. I mean, let me read some of these stats a little bit. We controlled them in the time of possession. We had 32 minutes with the time of possession, so you can't say we didn't have enough time to score. When you look at their third down conversion, they went 2 for 10. We went 6 for 17. When you look at the fourth down conversion, we went 1 for 4. They had no fourth down conversions. They had less than 30 yards more than us that entire game. So the question would be, how did they beat us? Well, overall, it comes down to when it matters the most, that offense did not show up. See, you can drive down the field as much as you want to, but I'm sorry, if you can't capitalize on first downs, if you are constantly taking sacks when you are in field goal position, you are never going to win. You see, they could have threw 5 yard they could have threw a 5 yard check downs, get tackled 4th and 3, maybe even go for it, kick a field goal or Will Reichard, and they would have kept themselves somewhere in this game. The problem I had with this game, the biggest problem I had was, look, shout out to Sam Darnold. If you were to tell me in the beginning of this year, because I said with this team, you had Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, you had Aaron Jones. There were so many guys on this team, so many weapons on this offense that Sam Darnold had to work with. I said there's no excuse why he shouldn't have 25 touchdowns. But if you were to tell me before this year that Sam Darnold was going to have 35 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, man, I would have slapped every fan in the face and said, you're crazy. Because I wouldn't have believed it. Kevin O'Connell does a great job of restoring a lot of quarterbacks' confidence, restoring a lot of quarterbacks' skills and abilities, and getting the most out of them. He did it with Kirk Cousins. He did it with Sam Darnold. Now, the problem I had with Sam Darnold is this game, there were so many times where I just wish he threw that ball away. And he was trying to make something work out of nothing. This guy was scrambling around like he was Patrick Mahomes, but I'm sorry, he's not. You can't just when you have defenders coming full blown at you, you can't just spin out of the way. You can't just try to spin out the way or try to run backwards and pull some Mahomes magic. You can't do it. It's impossible. There were so many times I wish he threw that ball out of bounds. And the Rams, they tied a playoff record, 9 sacks. I'm sorry, but when you are on the other team's 40-yard line, when you're on the other team's 30-yard line, you can't be taking 10-yard sacks like that. It's just not feasible. You're not going to win the game that way. At least put yourself in a position where you can kick field goals and make it a 2-score game. This whole entire game, all they were doing was trailing. Now, overall, I got to give the Rams a lot of credit. I do, because they came in here to win, and that's exactly what they did, especially that defense. I did not think that defense was going to be as good as it was. Now, obviously, we played them around the middle of the season. They gave us our they gave us our second loss, I believe. They gave us our second loss. It might have been first. Thank you. And they gave us our first loss, excuse me. And overall, what I noticed in that game was it was competitive for, I want to say, about 60% of the game. And then we were down by 8 points. In my opinion, a face mask should have been called on Sam Darnold in the end zone. They gave it a safety, and They won the game, credit to them. I'm not going to blame that loss on that safety. So you go back and you look at that game, you have to learn from your mistakes. The problem that I had, specifically, I'll start off with the offense. Kevin O'Connell is very good at offensive playmaking, but the problem is, in my opinion, I love Justin Jefferson to death, but that guy cannot take physicality. I am sorry, but when you get a corner who can go, hey, I'm gonna press you right on that chest, and I'm gonna make you try to route me. I need to see what you can do. Meek down, and I'm sorry, but whoever the cornerback, I think it was Quentin Lake. Shout out to Quentin Lake. Quentin Lake locked them down too. That to me was the problem. Justin Jefferson, if you can get a corner that can put their hands on him and can force him to play physical, I think that's where he kind of tends to struggle a little bit. The problem I have with the defense is this defense was the number one defense this year in blitz. They blitzed, I think, the highest percentage. I think it was around like 44%, something crazy like that. The problem is when you're blitzing about 75% of your defense, when you're putting 6-7 guys on the line, you're just telling them, hey, go. The problem with that is you leave the whole middle side of the field open. You leave the whole middle open. The whole middle was wide open for them to just pass around. And in my opinion, the best way to beat the Minnesota Vikings this year was if you were on defense, blitz the hell out of that offense. And if you were on offense, just block the blitz. That's it. As long as you could do those two things, you were going to beat Minnesota easy. And the reason why I say that is because those are the two things that they were relying on. Sam Darnold needed protection to get those deep balls going, to get that ball to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, give them time to run their routes and run their play calling. As far as the defense, if you could blitz them and you can get to the quarterback, they were going to end up getting covered. They were going to end up getting a lot of pressure picks. A lot of the picks that came this year was because that defense was able to get to the quarterback. But when you can block those blitzes and prevent them from happening, now all of a sudden you got to rely on that secondary. Now you got to rely on guys like Shaq Griffin to go cover some of the best wide receivers. You got to rely on Stephon Gilmore, who's kind of pushing that age barrier to basically cover up your number one wide receiver. Byron Murphy, I mean, he led our team, I think, with 6 picks. He had a good season, but the problem is coverage-wise, he could have been a lot better. So for me, I feel like the problem with this team was they kind of try to stick to their bread and butter, but there was never no adaptation. They were never adapting to when things got wrong. And I mean, in this game, in the strip sack for a touchdown, between the interception that Sam Darnold threw earlier on in the game and how they just couldn't gain any momentum. I'm not going to lie to you. The thing that really killed me was I can't remember when it happened, but we had a stop on them. I think we stuffed them. And they went to go punt the ball and they landed on the 3-yard line. When I saw that, I was like, you got to be kidding me. You're telling Sam Darnold to go run 97 yards and run down the field. He wasn't going to do it. TJ Hawkinson ended up scoring that touchdown. Credit to him. And then here is where the problem lies. If you go back and you look at the Detroit game, the amount of times that Minnesota was in the red zone, you tell them, hey, just get 2 yards for a touchdown. They could not do it. That red zone was like their worst enemy. It's like they were allergic to the end zone. So for me, the problem was, look, Sam Darnold, 35 touchdowns, 12 picks, 4,300 yards. All that's great. Good passer rating. I want to know what you can do in that red zone when you have to get a touchdown on 4th down, when you have to get those extra 3 yards. What can you do? And if you can't get those extra 3 yards, you can't convert, then I'm sorry, but it's failing the team.
Now, question, Mario.